In a time when the courage of the meek overcame the tyranny of the bloated, Britain was not yet stable. Kingdoms were still divided, with war ever simmering beneath the surface. Warlords rising where kings fall. Giants had fallen, but Britain was yet to find peace. A strange uneasy quiet had settled over the land like a mist rolling in from the sea. The great shapes that once walked the hills were gone. The storms had been quietened. Those old, ancient, gigantic beings that could be fought, seen and slain had been banished back to memory. But something had now taken their place. Not monsters of flesh and bone, but forces less easily understood. Kingdoms were fractured, borders shifted at the ambition of men. And in the undercurrent of it all, something unseen began to move. Because while giants could be killed, fate could not. There are figures throughout history that will be remembered for time immemorial, and then there are those that leave nothing at all. No throne, no crown, no legacy written in the annals of time with the blood of ages, and yet without them, everything would have been different. Merlin was one of these figures. He did not arrive in stories as other men do. In fact, there is no clear beginning for Merlin, his origin as enigmatic as the man himself. A man seemingly outside of time, yet in times of crisis he appears, at the edges of power and destiny, standing behind the throne, whispering in ear, advising, soothsaying, but never ruling. Some say he was born of no father, no human father, that is. Others whispered that he is the relic of something older, predating Christianity itself, remembering the world before this one. A child who spoke truths that no one had yet discovered, or futures that could not even be comprehended. Someone who could see what had not yet come to pass. A presence slightly out of sync with time, existing beyond and outside of time. Not a ruler or a commander of armies, he did not don a crown, but kingdoms stood because he shaped them, guided them, and when he was gone, it heralded the end of an era that would descend into chaos. This is not just the story of a wizard as later scribes would imagine him. This is something older, darker. The prophet, the changeling, the forgotten god, the architect, the shaper of fate. Perhaps even a prisoner of his own knowledge. Intelligence is a gift and a curse. A figure between the fading echoes of pagan Britain and kings of the faith. To see the future is not a gift, it is a burden. And Merlin saw everything, the rise of Arthur, the glory of Camelot, and the doom that would follow. This is Mythic Albion, and this is the story of Merlin. Before there was a Merlin, there was Myrddin, and as a child there was something unnatural about him, order in contention with chaos. He had a mother, that much is known, a woman who spoke very little about the night he was conceived. A woman, when pressed, would say that no man had come to her, yet the child had been born all the same. But there was nothing miraculous about that, dangerous in a world where bloodlines and lineage mattered. And a child without a father was not seen favourably, and so the whispers began. Some say he was blessed, cursed, a bastard child, a Cambion, not welcome in the village but feared so was neither cast out. He would herald travellers before they even arrived in town, finding that missing sheep before the farmer even realised it had gone. Animals were also uneasy around him, sensing the strife and unnaturalness in him, as beasts were often apt to do. It was said that his mind was fractured, home to many personalities, a myriad of souls, the mad boy that would become the mad man, Myrddin the Wild. Britain was fractured. The Romans had gone, and now was the time for rebuilding, and King Vortigern would be the man to do that. Britain would become a fortress. He was a tyrant that could not be trusted. Had he not invited Saxons into the country to use against Picts and the Scots? But the enemy of my enemy has a way of biting the hand that feeds it, and soon the Saxons had established the kingdom of Kent while he hid in North Wales, mourning the death of his son at the hands of those traitorous heathens. And he would build a fortress so nothing like that could ever happen again. The walls were built on the back of serfs, but they crumbled soon after. Again they were built, and again they would fall. Vortigern began to grow desperate, and desperation is acceptable to dangerous counsels. A child must be sacrificed, but of course, if that worked for those heathen pagan maniacs, then it would work for him. In fact, there was a boy in mind, a fatherless boy, an unnatural thing, a boy that shouldn't belong to this world. Such a strange thing would not take long to find, and when they found him, he was just a quiet boy, unassuming and unafraid. Even as they applied the manacles on pain of death, the boy did not plead. He did not weep. His eyes looked like twin galaxies. As he was brought to this desperate king, he looked at the crumbling citadel around him. He smiled. Then he chuckled. Then he laughed. What madness was this? "Run him through! This child is mad!" Quite possibly. But before you do, I can say that the fault of your walls is not with your stone. The king looked shocked. The boy, manacles clamped at his thin wrists, pointed down. The ground below you is alive. The boy snapped his fingers and the manacles fell to the ground. You sent 20 men to apprehend me. I would suggest you put those men to work with picks and shovels. Dig. Vortigern hesitated. A king does not take orders from a bastard child, least of all one that would fuel these foundations in blood. But he was also intrigued. And what if his men dug? If there was nothing there, then it would make a grand grave for this young whip. With a gesture, he commanded the men to get to work. Picks struck earth. Shovels caved through soil. Nothing. Just dirt and stone. The king was growing irritated. All that was being done here was a weakening of the foundations further. And then a sound. Low. Distant. Then the ground shuddered. A crack began to split the bottom of the pit. The men began to scramble, and then two vast forms tangled in slumber, or perhaps struggle, tore through the bottom of that pit. The first form was crimson, scales burning like iron fresh out of the forge, eyes blazed with ancient fury. Its roar tore through the air, as if the sky would be the next thing to split. Great leathery wings bore it up, the Red Dragon. The second form, no less formidable in size, was pale as bone and cold as winter. Its body coiled like that of a serpent with reptilian legs, vast wings and eyes that burned with sub-zero intensity. The White Dragon. The men below these terrible apex predators were no more considered than ants would be to a child. The great dragons collided in an epic struggle. Claw met fang, fire met ice. The sky was darkening around them, as if beckoning the end of the world. The king's men scattered. Some fell to their knees. The two dragons crashed back into the pit like a meteor and comet intertwined. Myrddin stood at the edge of the pit, watching. The two dragons looked too evenly matched, which was the danger. How much carnage would be wrought through their stalemate? And then the Red Dragon began to drive the White Dragon back. The ground trembled, dark energies erupted from that pit, and with a final swipe, the White Dragon was banished back into the pit, into that crack from whence they came. The red dragon stood, panting. It regarded the boy at the pit and then dove back into the earth itself. Silence came, almost deafening in the absence of what had just been witnessed. But the citadel did not shake. It felt unmoving, sturdy. The king whispered, "What is this?" Myrddin turned to the king. "This is your kingdom. The red dragon is the people of this land. The white represents those that would come to take it. The two dragons will fight for eternity, fighting, shaping what stands and what falls." The king said nothing. This boy was not meant to die this day. He was revelation. The boy was already leaving. Two men tried to bar his way with spears, but the king waved them away. He wasn't even sure if they would have been able to bar this child, even if they tried. Myrddin placed a hand gently on the stone on his way out. "Build if you wish, but know this: no kingdom stands forever." Myrddin the mad child would soon become the mad man. In the years that followed, the name Myrddin began to change. He was no longer the child without a father. He was becoming something else, a presence at the edges of power. Britain was shifting, just as the two dragons beneath the surface would continue their unseen war. And Myrddin moved with it, watching and observing. To see the future is one thing, to shape it is another thing entirely. Nothing was ever a given. Britain was under the power of a man called Pendragon, Uther Pendragon, a man of strength, appetite and ambition, returning to England with his brother after exile, driving the Saxons back. Wanting to pay tribute to his fallen chieftains who had attempted to make peace with the invaders, his brother had sent for a wise man, a man now going by the name of Merlin. Together, prince, warlord and wizard had gone to Ireland and brought back vast monoliths. Pendragon had seen with his own eyes this man called Merlin scatter entire armies with a mere bang of his staff. But like all men with power, when they come across something they cannot immediately have, they must own it. Pendragon was king in all but name, feared, respected, but flawed. He needed to leave a legacy behind, and he would do so through Ingrain, wife of the Duke of Cornwall. A woman spoken not only for her beauty, but also her presence, her grace, an aura that captivates. Uther saw her once, and that was enough. Desire took a hold of him, not as a passing want, obsession, and he would have her, no matter the cost. War came, as is often the case when a ruler confuses longing and ideals with what they believe is right. Castles were besieged, men would die in horrendous battles for a desire that was not shared, and through it all, Merlin observed. This time Uther summoned Merlin. "I have taken lands, I have broken armies, and still she is beyond my reach." Merlin regarded him carefully. Uther felt like his soul was being unfurled before him. Merlin saw a man who could shape the world through sheer force, but not patience. "You would have her?" It was not a question. "Then you must become what she will accept." Uther did not fully comprehend what was being bequeathed, and nor did he care, not so long as the outcome was all the same. It came in the night, while the war still burned much of the southwest. The Duke of Cornwall was away, holding the line, and somewhere else, Merlin worked his magic. There was no scattering of armies, no wielding lightning like a whip or white fire from his eyes. It was something subtle, precise but unsettling. Merlin muttered incantations and Uther's form changed and shifted. His face, his voice, until he was no longer Uther. He was Goloi, Duke of Cornwall. Uther walked boldly into enemy territory, but all the men of Cornwall would see was their heroic leader. Beneath the veil of deception, with arrogance, Uther entered the fortress. He came unto Ingrain's chamber, and that night Arthur was conceived. And even as this was occurring, the threads of fate tightened. Somewhere on the battlefield, Goloi, the true Duke, was in need of reinforcements. But reinforcements did not come, because Goloi was in his kingdom, and he withdrew all the men. The true Goloi was cut down, not in glory and not in honour. A life ended where another begins. One legend exchanged for a future one, and Merlin had seen it all. When dawn came, Uther returned to his true form, satisfied, victorious. Merlin did not share in this, but he kept his own counsel. What had been done could not be undone. There was no going back now. A king was made, but Merlin was not thinking of that dangerous fool Pendragon. A great king, but one born of shadow, deception, and blood. Merlin was no longer revealing destiny, he was orchestrating it. Despite the manner in which he was conceived, when Arthur was born, the world did not tremble. There were no storms, heavenly signs, or voices from beyond. Just a woman screaming into the night while in the throes of labour within the halls of Tintagel. Servants moved quickly but quietly, and candles burned low. And outside, the war that had brought all of this into motion still lingered. When the boy was held up into the light and smacked on the bottom, he did not cry harshly, merely a small sound, fragile. Despite what was said of his father, he was still entirely human, and for the moment, he was not a king, not yet, just a child in his mother's arms. Whatever had been done to Ingrain, whatever deception had been used, the babe in her arms was real, hers. And then Merlin arrived, not through the door opening, but stepping out of shadow, standing just beyond the candlelight, the darkness hiding the stars within his eyes. Ingrain saw him, not unkind, but also unfeeling. In the pit of her stomach, she knew that this moment, however sweet, would be bitterly brief. "You have come for him," she said quietly. Merlin did not talk at first. He, the man that could see time as clearly as you or I can see words in a book, was almost taken surprise by this. "The child cannot remain here," he said at last. Ingrain tightened her hold. "He is my son." "Yes, he is, but he is not yours to keep." The words felt heavy, cruel in simplicity, but delivered with no malice in voice. What followed after is something that the imagination would have to fill in, because Merlin did leave with that child into the night, reverently. And though the night was dark, there was no force within Albion that could conceive to stop him. The child was taken far from court, far from name, far from destiny. The child was given to an ordinary family on the outskirts, far from the dangers of war, a rare pocket of peace. The couple, not knowing what they had been given, would give him a good life, raised as a boy, not a king, and that was perhaps Merlin's final mercy, to give him a childhood untouched by the weight of what he would become. Years would pass, kings rose and fell, the land remained in a constant state of restlessness, and Uther, for all his faults, was a brutal man who kept society from unravelling. And when Uther died, Britain fractured. No heir was named. There was no line succession agreed upon. The lords of Britain turned upon one another, each claiming right, baselessly but with strength of households and armies at their backs. The land teetered on the edge of civilizational collapse. And once again, Merlin came to the forefront. Not to command or rule, but to decide. Brutus of Troy, the legendary founder of London. That great warrior who rid the land of giants. They were beginning to become a problem again, Merlin pondered. But they weren't to be a problem for long. Somewhere a baby would grow up to be the slayer of 100 giants. Interesting times were afoot. In the heart of this city of London was a stone, and cleft within that stone was a mighty sword known as Excalibur. Inscribed upon the stone were the words, "Whoso pulleth this sword from this stone and anvil is rightwise king born of all Britain." Knights came first, strong men, proud men. They pulled and strained and cursed. The sword did not budge. More came, lords and warriors, men who had carved kingdoms from chaos. None succeeded. The sword remained, and an element of entertainment and drama rang through the city. Still, if someone didn't do anything soon, the natives would get restless. A young squire had come to town with his father, Sir Ector. While the boy was not Sir Ector's own, he raised him all the same, along with his stepbrother, Kay. The night that he was brought to this man in his wife's cottage was almost a blur now, but no matter, he loved the boy as he would his own. A hooded beggar was moving through the crowd, and then by hook or by crook, placed a small hand into the young squire's back. Arthur stumbled forward. Sir Ector looked around, but the beggar was already gone in a sea of people. The crowd looked animated for a moment. This was something different to what they had normally seen. Instead of returning to his father, the boy stepped forward. He ran his fingertips over the pommel and down to the grip. The crowd was silent, though there was no expectation. Arthur looked at this sword with wonder, and without hesitation, he pulled. The sword came free, easily. Arthur held it up and saw his face in the reflection of the blade. It was as if he had always owned this sword and it had never belonged to the stone. There was a gasp throughout the crowd. The impossible had just happened, something that could not be argued away or denied. Arthur was beginning to wonder if he had done something wrong. Should he put it back into the stone? And across the crowd, the beggar watched. There was no surprise or triumph on his face, just confirmation. It was not a test of strength, but of worthiness. The future was beginning to unravel from the present, the future Merlin had wanted. The boy would be named, revealed, raised up, Arthur, King of Britain. Even as the crown awaited him, even as Camelot began to take shape, as a vast oak table that could sit 300 knights was being carved, there was one truth that lingered behind it all. The kingdom, this golden age to come, had not been built by chance, not by some path of destiny that could be disengaged with, but by choice. Preordained choice, on sacrifice and shadow. But Merlin knew how this tale would end, and in that there was a great sadness in his heart. The rise and fall of the giants, the knights, the Holy Grail, Morgan, Arthur and Mordred, and his own fall. But he would be there every step of the way. Many more years pass. Arthur sits upon the throne and Merlin fades back into the shadows. Power not retreating, just lying in an undercurrent. Camelot was rising. The round table was well established. Knights were flocking to the banners of Arthur. A golden era was upon Britain, and yet Merlin stood apart from it all, always just behind and never within. It was during this time that she entered the story, a woman of many faces, of different names, a fractured psyche, appearing to be in different places simultaneously. She arrived in court as Vivian, unfamiliar to most, but the surroundings were not unfamiliar to her. Arthur's ascension came with challenges, and one challenge came from Mark of Cornwall. He had heard of sordid affairs, adultery, and that this corruption was spreading throughout the court. And so Mark sent his paramour, Vivian, to take advantage and to sow discord. They would come to call her the Lady in the Lake, though she had other names: Nimue, Vivian, Morgana, Morgan Le Fay, the names of a broken mind, several personalities inhabiting the same person, dangerous, vivacious and powerful. And like Merlin, she was not ordinary. It was not long before Vivian was made a lady in waiting. Within this circle she soon sowed scandalous stories, twisting a knife in an already rotten apple. She made an attempt at Arthur and she was rebuffed. And then she encountered him, the great magician, the astronomer, the engineer, the architect and bard, the man whose friendship and advice were valuable assets to Arthur. She realised she needed to sway this old man, the true power behind Camelot. She knew him, but he also knew her. When she came to him, there was a moment of pause for the wizard. In her there was something familiar. She was like him, touched by something beyond the ordinary flow of life. She was of mixed human and fairy blood. There were several women inside one. The human Morgan, half-sister to Arthur, Vivian, the lake fairy who loved the planet, and Fata Morgana, the scion of Britain, an evil queen attempting to control humanity. Different personalities vying for control, wild, like him, Nimue, the Lady of the Lake. She professed her love for Merlin, though he knew this would be a trick. She wished to learn magic, dark magic, magic that could be used on him, though he taught her all the same. Merlin was old and Merlin was depressed. The weight of time, the weight of madness and the sacrifices that came with guiding destiny. Or maybe he just knew what was coming. He taught her small things, words of power, ways of seeing. But a little knowledge can bestow a lot of power. And Vivian learned quickly, too quickly. Boundaries were being crossed, teacher and student. Merlin tried to resist her. Did Merlin love her, or did he just love what she was? He attempted to leave on his own. He wandered alone on a beach and drifted off in a small boat, only to be pursued by her. She came upon his boat. She gave him platitudes, an old man being complimented by a young girl. They came ashore and wandered until they reached an enchanted forest. She recalled a charm that Merlin had once told her, one that could bind a man inside an invisible, impregnable wall. The wall itself was invisible to the world. She sought this secret. They rested in the forest. As they reclined under a tree, she caresses Merlin, tells him of her love and devotion. Merlin allows his ego to take control, though he knows none of the words to be true. She begs of him to teach her the charm. He knows it will not be used for good. He sees the darker part of her triad within her. He offers her something else, anything but the charm. Morgana Le Fay, terrible and beautiful, sings to him. In love, if love be love, if love be ours, faith and unfaith can ne'er be equal powers. unfaith is aught is want of faith in all. Merlin almost believes that she loves him, but Morgana Le Fay is evil. Her assault on him is relentless, using every feminine wile on him, but deep fury is emanating from her in waves. It manifests as a storm around them. She even withdraws from him. He cannot bear to see her harmed or leaving him. He teaches her the charm to protect against the coming storm, and then falls into an exhausted sleep. When Merlin awoke, he knew. He always knew. He had seen the rise of Arthur and the fall that would follow. The breaking of the Round Table, the end of Camelot. And within that unravelling vision, he had seen this too, his own ending. And yet, he taught her. He knew it would be a grove or a forest. He knew a spell would be taught, not one to command, but a prison. Coaxed or given willingly, it did not matter in the end. She wove a spell of seduction around him. The moment itself was quiet. No great battle, no clash of power. He tapped his finger on the shield around him, impregnable as predicted. She was gone now, and he was hidden from the world. He had no anger, and he did not struggle. No cry of betrayal. How do you fight something you have already seen? Merlin was bound, not destroyed or killed, but removed, placed beyond the reach of the world he had shaped. Some say he was sealed within a tree, others that he lies beneath stone or within a crystal cave, alive but unable to act, watching, always watching. Camelot stood. Arthur ruled. The knights rode out under the banners of gold and red. Everything Merlin had set into motion was now real, and yet he was gone. The man who shaped kings no longer walked among them. The voice that guided destiny was silent, and perhaps that is the way it was always meant to be. He was never meant to rule, never meant to stand in the light. One half of him was light and the other half was shadow, and the latter is where he stood often, the hand that moves unseen. And when his work was done, the world moved on without him. And in that ending, one must ask the question, if Merlin truly saw all things, then he saw this, his own fall, his own imprisonment. And if he saw it and allowed it to happen, then perhaps it was never a defeat. Perhaps it was just another part of the grand design. Somewhere he is out there, beneath earth, tree, or stone. Not gone, not ended, just watching. Thank you for listening to Mythic Albion. If you liked today's episode, leave a like and review. It helps others find their way back to the path of destiny. And so Merlin fades from the story, not in fire or glory, but silence, removed from the world he helped to create. Camelot rises, its halls filled with light, its banners across the land, and for the first time in memory, Britain begins to feel whole again. A king sits upon a throne, perhaps the greatest king the land of Britain will ever see, Arthur. The Round Table gathers, knights bound by oath, names that will echo through legend, warriors, champions, men who will define what it means to be a noble. For a moment, it almost feels as if the chaos itself has ended, as though the land had finally found its balance. But there is something beneath it all, something unseen, the same current once stirred beneath Vortigern's citadel. Because no kingdom, no matter how golden, can stand forever. Not against time or human nature. Did Merlin try to stop what was coming? Or did he ensure that this happened exactly as it was meant to? But as the wizard fades into myth, as the king takes his place, As the knights ride out beneath a united banner, the story does not end. Sometimes the greatest legends are not forged in their rise, but in their breaking. Next time on Mythic Albion, we come to the final chapter in the Arthurian trilogy. The Age of Camelot at its peak, the Knights of the Round Table, the bonds that hold them together and the betrayals that will tear them apart. And if Camelot falls, it will not be the giants or the gods or the monsters. It will be us.